did you know that like one of the biggest things holding AI back right now isn't like making them bigger or feeding them more data? It's actually teaching them to like slow down and really think.
Yeah, it's a fascinating challenge. We're so used to wanting AI that's like super fast and responsive, but when it comes to like really complex reasoning, that speed can actually be like a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
So today we are diving into some research that explores this whole idea of patient AI and how we can kind of like encourage more careful thought in large language models or LLMs.
Right, and LLMs are like the brains behind a lot of AI. You use like chatbots and stuff.
Okay, so the research we're looking at is this paper, Patience is the Key to Large Language Model Reasoning. And it's by researchers at Tsinghua University.
Yeah, and it kind of flips the script on what we think makes AI smart, you know.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit.
Okay.
So the researchers are really focusing on these large language models or LLMs, and they're finding that a big issue is that these models are often trained to be like fast and concise.
Yeah, and that makes sense in a lot of ways, right? Like we often prefer quick answers, especially like in casual conversation.
Right.
But the researchers point out that this whole thing of like valuing speed can lead to mistakes when you're trying to deal with more complicated problems.
It's like when you try to do like a complex math problem in your head, right? You might miss some steps if you're rushing.
Exactly. And that's where this idea of patience comes in.
Okay.
The researchers wanted to see if they could make LLMs more accurate by like encouraging them to be more thorough and take their time reasoning.
So how do they do that? Like, do they give the AI like a meditation app or something?
Well, not quite. They use this technique called preference optimization to basically retrain the LLM.
Okay.
It's like, imagine if you're a student and your teacher suddenly starts giving you extra credit for showing all your work. Even if you get the answer right, you probably start focusing more on like the steps, right?
I see where you're going with this. So you're kind of like changing the AI's priorities.
Exactly. They're shifting the focus from just getting an answer quickly to like emphasizing the quality and accuracy of like the whole reasoning process.
That's interesting. But how do they actually do this preference optimization? Do they have to like feed the LLM a bunch of new information?
Surprisingly, no. They actually stuck with the same math problems and solutions they were using before.
Okay.
But they made a really interesting adjustment. Imagine like taking a solved equation and breaking down each step into like the tiniest, most basic parts. That's basically what they did with the training data they gave the LLM, like super detailed step-by-step solutions.
So they basically turned the AI into like a super explainer, like showing it exactly how to break down these complex problems.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And the amazing thing is they didn't even teach the AI any new facts or formulas, just a new way of thinking.
Okay, so they've got this patient AI. Now, did it actually work?
The results were pretty impressive just by training the LLM to be more patient. They saw a big jump in how accurately it could solve math problems. Like, in one test, the model's accuracy went up by like 6.7%.
Well, that's a pretty big improvement. It seems like slowing down and thinking things through really does help, even for AI.
That's the big takeaway, and it opens up all these core possibilities for how we might design AI in the future.
Okay.
But before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's dig a little deeper into how they actually measured this whole patience thing. It's not like you can just give an AI a patience test, right?
Yeah, exactly. How do you even measure something like patience when you're talking about an algorithm? Like, what were they looking at?
Basically, they looked at two main things: how long the AI's reasoning process was and how detailed its explanations were.
Yeah.
So the more steps the AI took and the more it broke things down, the more patient it was considered to be.
So it's like they're saying the AI that shows all its work and explains every little step is more patient than the one that just jumps to the answer, even if they both get it right.
Exactly. And that shift in how we evaluate AI is like the core of this research. It's not just about the answer anymore. It's about like how well the AI can explain its thought process.
Gotcha.
But of course, there might be some downsides to this approach as well, right?
Yeah, I imagine one obvious concern would be speed. If we're making AI more deliberate, wouldn't that make it slower? In a world that wants everything instantly,
Right.
wouldn't that be a big problem?
That's a really good point. And to be honest, this patient approach does take a bit longer for the LLM to give an answer. It's definitely a trade-off. But the researchers say that in a lot of important applications, that extra little bit of time is worth it for the increase in accuracy.
So it's about choosing the right tool for the job, right? If you need a quick answer, maybe patient AI isn't the best fit.
Yeah.
But if accuracy is really important, that extra processing time might be crucial.
Exactly.
What are some other like downsides or challenges they ran into?
Well, one challenge they talked about was like overcoming the AI's natural tendency to be brief,
Okay.
Like these models are trained to give us the shortest, fastest answer possible. So getting them to like embrace this more detailed approach, it took some work.
It's like trying to get a racehorse to just chill out and walk in the park.
Yeah. So that's where this preference optimization thing comes in. It's all about these little nudges and like positive reinforcement.
Okay.
So by constantly rewarding the AI for giving those step-by-step explanations, they slowly shifted it to be more patient and thorough.
Kind of like training a dog with treats.
Yeah.
You reward the behavior you want to see more of.
Exactly. And in this case, the treat is like being recognized for explaining things well.
I like that.
It shows how important it is to understand how these AI systems learn and change.
Yeah.
We can't just program them to be patient. We got to guide them there through training.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious about the math problems they used in this research. Were they using like basic arithmetic or something more advanced?
Actually, they used a whole bunch of different problems from like grade school level math all the way up to stuff that would challenge even a human expert.
Wow.
The fact that this patient AI did so well on such a variety of problems really shows how powerful this approach could be.
So they really put it through its paces.
They did, and that's what makes this so interesting. It suggests that this whole idea of encouraging detailed reasoning could apply to all sorts of tasks, not just math problems.
Like what?
Well, think about things like diagnosing illnesses, financial modeling, even creative writing, anything where careful step-by-step thinking is really important.
Wow, this is making me rethink everything I thought I knew about AI. I always figured the goal was to make them as fast as possible, but this research suggests that slowing down and being more careful can be a huge advantage.
It's definitely a different way of thinking, and it shows how important it is to understand the nuances of different AI applications.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes speed is the most important thing,
Yeah.
but other times accuracy and really understanding the problem are what matter most.
It's like picking the right tool for the job, I guess.
Exactly.
This is all super fascinating, but I think we got to be realistic here and acknowledge that there are probably some downsides to this patient AI idea as well.
You're right. No technology is perfect.
Right.
And like we've been saying, the most obvious drawback is that it takes more time.
Yeah.
And while that extra time might be small for some tasks, it could be a problem when you need a decision made right away.
That makes sense. Like if you're relying on AI to drive a car, you don't want it to be sitting there thinking about every possible scenario.
Yeah.
In those cases, a quicker response, even if it's a little less accurate, might be better.
Exactly. So it all comes down to understanding the specific situation and what's most important.
Right.
Patience might be good in some AI situations, but in others, it could be bad.
So it's all about choosing the right tool for the job, just like with any other technology.
Right.
We got to be aware of both the good and the bad with this patient AI thing.
Absolutely. And another thing to keep in mind is that while this research focused on math problems, we don't know for sure how well this patience idea will work for other kinds of tasks.
Okay.
We need more research to see how well it applies to different areas and problem-solving situations.
That's a good point. Just because it works well for math doesn't mean it's a magic solution for everything.
Right.
What other research could help us figure out the potential and limitations of patient AI?
Well, one thing that could help is looking into other ways to encourage detailed reasoning.
Okay.
This preference optimization thing has shown some good results, but there might be even better ways to shape AI behavior.
Like what?
Well, researchers are looking at how changing the actual structure of these models or introducing new reward systems could make their reasoning even better.
It sounds like there's a lot to explore.
There is.
It's exciting to think about the future of AI and what role this patient AI could play in how these systems solve problems and interact with the world.
It's definitely a cool time to be following AI. And even though this research is still pretty new, it gives us a glimpse into a future where AI isn't just about speed and efficiency, but also about thoughtful problem solving.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot today, from the technical stuff about patient AI to its potential real-world uses and limitations.
We have.
Before we wrap things up, let's give our listeners some key takeaways.
Okay.
What are the most important things they should remember?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that faster AI isn't always better.
Right.
It really highlights how important it is to encourage more detailed and careful reasoning, especially when accuracy is really crucial.
So sometimes slowing down and thinking things through is the way to go, even for AI.
Exactly.
What else should we highlight?
Well, we've also learned that this preference optimization is a really powerful tool for shaping how AI behaves. By being smart about how we structure rewards and feedback during training, we can guide these systems towards better ways of solving problems.
It's like understanding how AI learns and then using that to kind of steer it in the right direction.
Yeah.
And lastly, this research really shows how important it is to think about both the good and the bad of any new technology.
For sure. Patient AI has a lot of potential, but it's not a perfect solution.
Right.
It's really important to carefully think about if it's the right fit for each situation and to keep exploring other ways to build strong and reliable AI systems.
Well said. This has been a really interesting look into patient AI and how it could change the way we think about and design intelligent systems. Before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one last thought to chew on.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about the benefits of encouraging patience in AI. But could there be times when being too patient is actually a bad thing?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the balance between careful thinking and efficiency.
Right.
Could there be situations where thinking too much leads to, like, analysis paralysis and prevents you from taking action when you need to?
That's a good point.
It's definitely something to think about as we continue to explore the world of AI.
It reminds us that developing and using AI requires careful thought and a deep understanding of both the technology itself and its potential impact.
Yeah, it really shows that we need to keep talking about this stuff and thinking carefully as we start using more and more advanced AI in our lives.
This has been like a super interesting deep dive. I feel like we've just scratched the surface of what this patient AI could mean for the future.
Yeah, we have, and that's what's so cool about this field. There's so much more to discover as researchers keep pushing the limits of AI.
It's like a reminder that building truly intelligent systems isn't just about raw power or speed.
Right.
It's about like understanding how we learn, reason, and solve problems.
Totally. And that's a journey that takes like collaboration, creativity, and yeah, a good amount of patience.
Okay.
Both for the AI we're building and for ourselves as we try to figure out this whole new world.
Well said. Okay, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive into the world of patient AI.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for listening. We hope this got you thinking and gave you a new way of looking at how AI is changing.
And if you're as interested in this research as we are, we encourage you to check out the source material.
Right, we'll put some links in the show notes.
Okay, until next time.
Keep those brains working, and remember, sometimes slowing down can lead to the biggest breakthroughs.
And never underestimate the power of a little patience, especially when it comes to building a future where AI helps us solve some of humanity's toughest problems.